If you're a leader, or really anyone navigating today's professional landscape, you've likely felt it. This relentless, almost overwhelming sense of constant change. It's like the ground beneath us is perpetually shifting. You try to keep up, but just when you get your bearings, something else throws you off balance.
That feeling is incredibly real.
Yeah.
And it's, precisely what futurist Gemma Casio captures with his framework. BANI. It stands for brittle, anxious, nonlinear, and incomprehensible. Think about it. Our systems feel more fragile, right? There's a pervasive sense of unease. Cause and effect relationships are harder to trace, and the sheer volume of information often just leaves us bewildered.
Incomprehensible, definitely.
Exactly. It's a real departure from the more predictable, stable environments that, well, many traditional leadership models were built for.
And that's exactly why we're taking this deep dive today. Our mission is to distill the essential, actionable insights from a really powerful article by Nancy Murphy. She's the CEO of CSR Communications.
Right. And her firm specializes in the human dynamics of organizational change. It's core to what they do.
Precisely. So let's unpack this a bit. Just how much has the world of change actually shifted? Is this feeling of constant flux really that different from, say, 5 or 10 years ago, or are we just more, attuned to it now?
Well, it's definitely not just a feeling. The numbers are quite staggering, actually. Accenture's 2024 Pulse of Change Index.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
It revealed that the rate of change has jumped a colossal 183% since 2019.
Wow. 183%.
Yes, that's almost tripling in just a few years. It's an acceleration that, frankly, few could have predicted, and it certainly has profound implications. And here's the critical consequence, the real human impact of that number. Our collective capacity to absorb all that change, it's been significantly eroded.
So it's not just more change, we're less able to handle it.
Exactly. It's not just about the external forces, it's about what's happening internally, within our organizations, within our people. This erosion, it stems from chronic stress, weakened workplace support systems.
Right.
A lot of it traces back to the pandemic, really.
Makes sense.
Think about it. Organizations are navigating this immense disruption, but our emotional and psychological reserves are often, depleted. We're running on empty, even as the demands keep piling up.
So it's this combination. The amount of change is up, and our ability to handle it is down. That creates this huge, often painful gap. It really makes you wonder how anyone is thriving. But what's fascinating, and what gives us some direction here, is that the article points out that despite this incredibly challenging landscape, there are essential practices. It really identifies what separates the organizations that don't just survive, but truly thrive, from those that, falter or get stuck.
Okay, it feels like we're constantly trying new solutions to this change problem, training, new tech. But many seem to fall flat. What does the article pinpoint as the common pitfalls? The typical solutions leaders often reach for that simply aren't cutting it anymore, or maybe just deliver mediocre results.
That's a great question, because understanding what doesn't work is honestly just as crucial as knowing what does. The article systematically details these common, yet often ineffective approaches. First, there's this reliance on one-and-done training.
Ah, yes, the classic workshop.
Exactly. We've all probably seen that, right? Everyone dutifully attends, ticks the box, but 6 months later, nothing's really changed. It's barely sufficient for basic skills, let alone building the deep adaptive capabilities needed for this kind of persistent upheaval. Then there's traditional leadership development. This usually equips leaders for, stable environments, teaching them how to optimize within existing structures.
Right, managing the status quo. But what today's conditions demand is what the article calls extreme leadership. A very different set of capabilities. Things like adaptive thinking, distributed decision-making, really fostering psychological safety over that traditional hierarchical control. And we often cling to rigid change management frameworks, the ones.
Oh, the binders full of checklists, the Gantt charts.
Precisely. Ridiculous checklists, sprawling Gantt charts, linear processes. The problem is they often completely miss the crucial element, human psychology.
The people part.
Exactly. It's the human reaction, the emotions, the perceptions that ultimately determines if a change actually succeeds or just stalls out completely.
I've definitely seen leaders assume technology will solve everything. They bring in new tools, but then scratch their heads when people resist using them.
Absolutely. That's a huge one. The article points out that leaders frequently forget that adopting tech solutions is itself a change that needs to be managed.
Good point.
If you just roll out a new system, maybe like advocating AI for overworked employees, without proper guidelines, training, or a clear change management strategy around it, you're actually exacerbating employee change exhaustion.
So you make things worse, not better.
Right. That initiative is likely to fail, and it just adds more stress to an already burdened workforce. Another common fallback, especially when leaders feel anxious themselves, is command and control leadership.
Kind of a knee-jerk reaction.
It is. It's a reflexive response to feel like they're in charge when things feel like they're spiraling. But what does it truly accomplish? It just erodes trust and engagement.
Can you give examples?
Sure. Things like really rigid return-to-office mandates or keystroke tracking software. These tactics breed resentment, not resilience or innovation. And finally, wellness programs. Now, these are often well-intentioned, but many employees perceive them as, well, disingenuous, or maybe even a waste of resources, because they often just treat the symptoms of stress like burnout rather than addressing the root causes.
Like workload or lack of control.
Exactly. The organizational culture, excessive workloads, lack of agency, they don't fix the underlying issues driving the stress people feel. So it feels a bit like putting a Band-Aid on a deeper wound.
So the hard truth, as the article puts it, is that you simply can't use Gantt charts and checklists to guide you through human emotional reactions to change. It's just a completely different ballgame when you're dealing with people's psychology.
That's absolutely right. And if organizations do try to force process over people, they quickly face what the article describes as a downward spiral of change resistance.
A downward spiral? How does that work?
Well, it often starts subtly. Maybe initial curiosity from employees, their natural questions about the change.
Which is normal.
Totally normal. But it gets misinterpreted by leaders as opposition. That can lead to defensive leadership reactions. Maybe they become more rigid or non-communicative.
Oh.
This, in turn, triggers genuine resistance from employees who then feel unheard or controlled. And ultimately, that can result in widespread exhaustion or even, outright revolt. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy of failure, really. The organization actually creates the very resistance it's trying to overcome by how it handles that initial phase.
Okay, so with all those common approaches falling short, the article must offer some maybe counterintuitive solutions. What does it highlight as the core capabilities needed to navigate this BANI world effectively? This is where it gets really interesting, right?
It does, and it introduces two seemingly contradictory yet absolutely essential leadership capabilities: speed and discernment.
Speed and discernment. Okay, they sound a bit like opposites.
At first glance, they might appear to be at odds, but the article illustrates their synergy beautifully. It uses this really powerful analogy.
Oh, I like this part.
It says, speed without discernment is like driving fast with your eyes closed.
Right.
You get somewhere quickly, but rarely where you intended, and often with dire consequences. You're moving, sure, but you lack direction, awareness, foresight.
Makes total sense. And the flip side?
Conversely, discernment without speed leads to analysis paralysis and missed opportunities. You have all the insight, all the wisdom, but you can't make a decision or act on it in time to capture a fleeting opportunity or, avert a looming crisis.
That makes perfect sense. So it's not either, it's both hand. It's about a dynamic tension rather than a static choice. The key takeaway here for you, the listener, seems to be that the organizations that truly thrive develop both capabilities, speed, and discernment. And crucially, they cultivate the intuition to know precisely when to emphasize each one.
Exactly. It's about being agile without being aimless and thoughtful without being paralyzed. Finding that balance.
So how do organizations actually implement this dual capability? The article outlines 4 essential practical steps or practices that these adaptive organizations follow. Let's dive into the first one, robust role clarity.
Yes, this is truly foundational. The article states that while some role ambiguity might be manageable, maybe even useful, in stable times, in disruptive environments, it's lethal.
Lethal, strong word.
It is, but think about it. When everything else is shifting, people need to know exactly where they stand and what their responsibilities are. Imagine the chaos if nobody knows who's supposed to do what when a new challenge suddenly emerges.
Right, total confusion.
So change-capable organizations ensure crystal clear role documentation across 3 critical dimensions. First, decision authority. Who makes what decisions and at what level?
Okay.
Second, responsibility boundaries. What does each person truly own without overlap or gaps? And third, cross-functional handoffs. How does work move smoothly and efficiently between teams, without falling into cracks or causing bottlenecks?
And the negative consequences of not having this clarity must be huge.
Immense. The article points out that muddy or outdated roles lead to wasted time and energy on unnecessary conflicts, duplicated efforts.
Frustrating for everyone.
Totally. It leaves middle managers feeling either disempowered because they don't know what they can decide, or conversely, maybe overstepping their bounds. And perhaps worst of all, critical gaps emerge, where essential responsibilities are neglected because everyone assumes someone else is handling it.
Yeah, I thought you were doing that.
Exactly. It's just a recipe for chaos in a volatile environment. It really eats away at productivity and morale.
Okay, that makes sense. Moving on to the second practice. Communication that builds trust, not just transmits information. The article really hammers home this point, that during significant change, trust becomes the oxygen that allows everything else to function. Without it, every initiative just struggles to breathe.
It's absolutely vital. And change-capable organizations understand that communication isn't just about, sending out memos or holding town halls, although those have their place.
It's more than just broadcasting.
Much more. It's fundamentally about relationship building and empathy. This means meeting people where they are emotionally before pushing for acceptance of the change. You can't just tell people to embrace something if they're feeling anxious or resistant. You need to acknowledge their concerns first.
So, empathy first.
Yes. Things will change. Plans will shift. Being transparent about that builds credibility, rather than trying to pretend everything is perfectly stable and predictable.
Honesty about the uncertainty.
Right. These organizations tend to over-communicate through multiple channels, recognizing that one-off emails just won't cut it. And critically, they act on feedback.
That's key. Which brings us nicely to the third practice, consistent commitment and calculated risk. The article gives this great visual here, referencing the New York City cab driver approach to change, accelerate, brake, swerve, which leaves people feeling nauseous, disoriented, and a little jerked around. You can just picture that whiplash, right? It's so vivid.
It is vivid, and it's incredibly destabilizing for an organization. That kind of erratic movement. So change-capable leaders maintain consistent commitment.
But wait, consistent commitment sounds rigid. Didn't we say rigid doesn't work?
Good point. It doesn't mean rigid adherence to failing strategies. It's more nuanced. It means taking calculated risks, experimenting in a controlled way, and crucially, providing a sense of security while the next stage of change unfolds.
Okay, stability amidst the change.
Exactly. This allows teams to iterate and learn without feeling like the rug is constantly being pulled out from under them. They communicate clearly about what is known and what remains unknown. They identify what won't change, even when circumstances do things like core values or the core purpose. These act as anchors in turbulent times.
Things people can hold on to.
Precisely. And they normalize course correction not as failure, but as smart adaptation. It's about being agile without being aimless, demonstrating leadership that is both flexible and reassuring.
Got it. And finally, the fourth practice, people first, not process first. This really reinforces a fundamental truth that honestly often gets lost in the shuffle. Organizations don't change, people don't change. The most sophisticated process framework will fail if it doesn't address the human psychology of change.
This is perhaps the most crucial insight of all. Change-capable organizations understand that resistance isn't just obstinance. It's a natural human response to loss of control, status, familiarity, as well as uncertainty and perceived threats to autonomy.
It's human nature.
It is. They don't demonize resistance. They try to understand and address these underlying concerns directly. This means building change readiness across all leadership levels, not just the C-suite. Your frontline leaders, your middle managers, they are critical change enablers.
They're the connection point.
They absolutely are. Investing in their capabilities is paramount because they are the direct connection to the majority of the workforce. It also involves identifying and addressing those organizational artifacts. The subtle systems, symbols, practices that might contradict the desired change.
Artifacts? Like what?
Well, for example, if you say you value innovation but you only reward people who follow strict, outdated procedures to the letter, that's an artifact. It's silently undermining your stated goal.
The hidden messages in the system.
Exactly. And finally, these organizations leverage that early change curiosity phase that people often have. They use that initial openness to build momentum rather than inadvertently creating genuine resistance by mismanaging it.
So, bringing this all together, what's the real cost of waiting? Of hoping this turbulence will somehow just subside on its own?
Well, the costs are significant, and they fall under two categories, really. There are the obvious tolls on your mission, your financial performance. That's clear, often quantifiable.
Your bottom line stuff.
Right. But the hidden costs are often far more severe, more insidious. You risk the loss of critical talent, your best people leave. You see this slow erosion of trust and morale across the entire organization.
Huh.
And the cumulative impact of poor decisions made under increasing unmanaged pressure.
Those are harder to measure, but maybe more damaging long term.
Absolutely. These are the things that can hobble an organization long after the immediate crisis has passed.
The article has this really impactful conclusion, and it resonates perfectly here. It's a powerful call to action. The best time to build these capabilities was before the current turbulence. The second best time is now.
Exactly. There's no benefit to waiting. Organizations that emerge strongest from this period, they won't be the ones that tried to avoid change or simply waited it out hoping things would stabilize.
They won't be the ones hiding.
No. Instead, they will be those that fundamentally transformed how they approach change itself. They make the ability to adapt a core organizational capability, an intrinsic part of their DNA, rather than just a periodic necessity that gets pulled out during crises. With these right foundations in place, robust roles, trust-based communication, consistent commitment, people first approach change shifts. It stops being a threat to be feared.
And becomes.
And becomes a strategic advantage for future growth. And in today's unpredictable world, that might just be the most sustainable competitive advantage of all.